I was used to being called pathetic, but Rachel had never managed to sound quite so bored while doing it. She stood in our kitchen, arms crossed, watching me fold my last shirt into the cardboard box like I was performing some mildly interesting science experiment. "So you're really doing this?" she said. Not a question. More like she was confirming the weather forecast. "The job's in Albany. Good pay, good benefits. We talked about this." I taped the box shut with more force than necessary. The sound echoed through our house. Correction, her house now. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm not leaving my life here, David. My wellness routine, my massage therapist, my friends, everything I've built. She gestured around the sterile kitchen with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Everything cold and perfect, just like her. I'd heard this speech 3 times already. Rachel treated that massage table like holy ground and me like a folding chair. "Your choice," I said, hefting the box. "But I'm going. You'll be back." She didn't even look at me, already scrolling through her phone. "You always come back." That stung, because it was true. For 12 years, I'd come back from every fight, every cold shoulder, every casual insult about my blue-collar limitations. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the way she'd laughed when I told her about the promotion. Not happy laughter, the kind you'd give a child who insisted they could fly. "Maybe," I said, shouldering my duffel bag. "Or maybe you'll realize what you had when it's gone." She snorted. What I had was a husband who thought moving boxes for a living was a career. I paused at the door. 12 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. Not with tears or pleading, but with her dismissing everything I'd worked for like it was amateur hour at the community theater. "For the record," I said, "I'm not moving boxes anymore. I'm managing the entire logistics operation for the Northeast region. But I guess you were too busy getting your chakras aligned to listen." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and for just a second, her expression changed. Softer, almost excited. Then she noticed me watching, and her face went blank again. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, David." I walked out, but not before I saw her phone light up again. Unknown number, with a heart emoji. Interesting. The drive to Albany took 3 hours. 3 hours to think about that heart emoji, about the way Rachel's whole demeanor had shifted when I mentioned her massage therapist, about how she'd started working late at the spa twice a week for the past 6 months. My new apartment was a furnished 1-bedroom in a complex that smelled like fresh paint and other people's new beginnings. I unpacked my boxes, set up my laptop, and did something I probably shouldn't have done. I logged into our shared cloud account. Rachel had never been good with technology. She still used the same password for everything. Wellness 123. I scrolled through her recent photos, her messages, her calendar appointments, and there it was. Private session with Eric, 7 p.m. Thursday. Deep tissue with E, canceled dinner with David. Special treatment, don't wait up. Eric. The wellness entrepreneur who ran the high-end spa Rachel frequented. I'd met him once at a charity event. Tall, tan, the kind of guy who used words like synergy and holistic in casual conversation. He'd given me a limp handshake and asked what I did for work, then found someone more interesting to talk to when I mentioned logistics. I stared at the calendar entries for a long time. Then I took a screenshot and saved it to my personal drive. My first day at the new job was a blur of introductions, system passwords, and orientation meetings. The facility was massive, 3 warehouses, a fleet of trucks, and a staff of 47 people who now reported to me. My predecessor had left everything in chaos, but chaos was something I understood. I'd been living in it for years. "You settling in okay?" Nick Castellano appeared in my office doorway around lunch. He was my second in command, a former Marine with graying temples and the kind of direct stare that made people tell the truth, whether they wanted to or not. Getting there. I gestured at the stack of reports on my desk. Previous guy left quite a mess. Previous guy was an idiot. You're already an improvement. Nick sat down uninvited, which I appreciated. I was tired of people treating me like I might break. Word is you left a wife behind to take this job. Word travels fast around here. Small town, big mouths. She coming up to join you? I thought about Rachel, probably getting her deep tissue treatment right about now. Doesn't look like it. Nick nodded, like that explained everything. Her loss? This job's a good one. Company's growing, benefits are solid, and the work's actually interesting if you like solving puzzles. I do like solving puzzles. Good, because I've got a feeling you're going to be very good at this. He was right. By the end of my first week, I'd streamlined 3 major processes and identified cost savings that would make the regional manager very happy. By the end of my second week, I'd received my first paycheck. I stared at the direct deposit notification on my phone. It was more money than Rachel had ever believed I was capable of earning. More than we'd ever had in our joint account at one time. On impulse, I took a screenshot and sent it to her. Her response came back within minutes. "You'll regret this." I typed back, "I already do." But that wasn't entirely true anymore. The thing about small towns is that everyone knows everyone else's business, especially when that business involves scandal. I learned this 3 weeks into my new life when I stopped by Murphy's Tavern after work. Murphy's was the kind of place where the bartender remembered your drink, and the regulars treated you like family once you'd proven you weren't a complete waste of space. I'd been going there most nights, partly because my apartment felt too quiet, and partly because the bartender, Tommy, made the best burger in a 50-mile radius. "How's the new job treating you?" Tommy asked, sliding a beer across the bar without being asked. "Can't complain. Beats my old life anyway." Ah, the mysterious ex-wife. Tommy had a gift for getting people to talk. Something about his face invited confession. She ever come to her senses? Doubtful. She's too busy with her wellness routine. "Wellness, huh?" A woman's voice joined the conversation. I turned to see a blonde in her 30s, well-dressed but tired-looking. "Sorry, couldn't help overhearing. I'm Charlene. I own the salon 2 blocks over." "David." I shook her hand. "And yeah, my wife's really into the whole spa scene." "Which spa?" Charlene's expression sharpened with interest. "Serenity Springs, down in Millbrook." "Oh, honey." Charlene exchanged a look with Tommy. "Eric's place." The way she said his name made my stomach clench. "You know him?" "Know him. Half my clients have stories about Eric and his special treatments. That man's been working his way through the married women of 3 counties. Tommy leaned closer. "Charlene here knows all the gossip, occupational hazard." "It's not gossip when it's true," Charlene said defensively. "Eric's got a whole system. Targets women with money, women with problems at home, women who need to feel special. He's got a private room in the back of his spa, soundproofed, with a separate entrance." My beer suddenly tasted like cardboard. "Separate entrance?" "For discretion, he calls it. Look, I don't usually get involved in other people's business, but if your wife's been going there..." She trailed off, studying my face. "You already know, don't you?" I nodded slowly. Suspected. Wasn't sure. "I'm sorry, honey. That's rough." "Actually," I said, surprising myself, "it's liberating." And it was. For months, I'd been questioning myself, wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed as a husband. Finding out Rachel was cheating didn't hurt the way I'd expected. Instead, it felt like permission. Permission to stop trying to save a marriage that had been over for years. Permission to stop feeling guilty about leaving. Permission to get even. "You know what you need?" Charlene said. "You need to document this. Get proof. Not for legal reasons, New York's a no-fault divorce state, but for your own peace of mind." "I'm not sure I want to see that." "Trust me, you do. Because right now, you're the bad guy who abandoned his wife for a job. But if people knew the truth? Nick appeared at my shoulder like he'd materialized from thin air. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. He nodded at Charlene and Tommy, then focused on me. You look like someone just told you your dog passed. Worse, someone just confirmed my wife's cheating. Nick absorbed this information without blinking. With who? Some spa owner named Eric. Eric Hartwell? Nick's expression darkened. Tall guy, fake tan, drives a white BMW? You know him? Know of him. He tried to poach my ex-wife about 2 years ago. She was smart enough to see through his act, but barely. Nick sat down and ordered a whiskey. Guy's a predator. Targets vulnerable women, makes them feel special, then bleeds them dry. Bleeds them dry how? Expensive treatments, private sessions, weekend retreats that cost more than most people's mortgage. My ex said he had women spending thousands of dollars a month on his wellness programs. I thought about our credit card statements, the charges I'd attributed to Rachel's shopping habits. Snake. The good news, Nick said, is that guys like Eric always overreach, always get too greedy, too confident. They make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Nick smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. The kind that end careers. Charlene leaned forward conspiratorially. Are you boys planning something? Nothing illegal, Nick said quickly. But maybe it's time someone exposed Eric for what he really is. Count me in, Charlene said. I've been waiting for someone to take that creep down a peg. I looked around the table at these people who barely knew me, but were willing to help me fight a battle I hadn't even known I was fighting an hour ago. It felt good. Better than anything had felt in months. Okay, I said. What did you have in mind? The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time since starting the job. Nick covered for me, telling everyone I had food poisoning. It wasn't entirely a lie. The thought of what Rachel and Eric were doing behind my back made me genuinely nauseous. Instead of going to the office, I drove back to Millbrook. I parked across the street from Serenity Springs and studied the building. It was exactly what I'd expected. Glass and steel, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. A sign in the window advertised holistic wellness solutions and private consultation available. The separate entrance Charlene had mentioned was around back, unmarked and discreet, perfect for married women who didn't want to be seen entering through the main lobby. I was taking photos with my phone when someone tapped on my passenger window. David? Rachel stood outside my car, yoga mat under her arm, looking genuinely surprised to see me. She was dressed in expensive workout clothes that I didn't remember buying, her hair styled in a way that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I rolled down the window. Hey, Rachel. What are you doing here? I thought you were in Albany. I am. Just had some business in town. I gestured toward the spa. Nice place. Very holistic. Her cheeks flushed pink. I was just leaving a class. Yoga? Meditation. With Eric. He's very spiritual. I'll bet he is, I thought. Good for you. You look relaxed. I am. This place has been a godsend, David. Eric really understands what I need. The double meaning wasn't lost on either of us. Rachel's flush deepened, and she took a step back from the car. Well, she said, I should get going. Hot date? Excuse me? You're all dressed up. Figured you might have plans. I always dress nicely, unlike some people. Her tone sharpened, falling back into familiar patterns. Some of us care about appearances. Right. Well, enjoy your evening. I started to roll up the window, but she stopped me. David, wait. About the other day. Maybe we should talk, really talk, about us, about the future. What about it? Maybe I was too hasty. Maybe we could work something out. Long distance, or... She was hedging her bets, I realized, keeping me as a backup option in case her thing with Eric didn't work out. The old David might have been flattered, might have seen it as hope. The new David saw it for what it was: manipulation. I don't think so, Rachel. I think we both know this marriage has been over for a long time. That's not true. We just need to reconnect, find our way back to each other. Hard to reconnect when you're connecting with someone else. The words hung in the air between us. Rachel's face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, defiance, and finally anger. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. I put the car in drive. Take care of yourself, Rachel. I drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw her pull out her phone, probably calling Eric to warn him that her husband was sniffing around. Good. Let them sweat. That evening, I met Nick and Charlene at Murphy's to plan our next move. So she knows you're on to them, Charlene said, after I'd recounted the parking lot encounter. Probably, which means they'll be more careful. Or more reckless, Nick suggested. People do stupid things when they're scared. What we need, Charlene said, is documentation. Photos, recordings, something concrete. I'm not hiring a private investigator to follow my wife around. You don't need to. I have a better idea. Charlene pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. My cousin Diane works at the health department. She owes me a favor. What kind of favor? The kind that involves surprise inspections of wellness facilities. Nick grinned. I like where this is going. If Eric's running his business the way I think he is, there are going to be violations. Unlicensed services, improper record keeping, maybe even health code issues. All it takes is an anonymous tip. That seems legal, Nick finished. Completely legal. If Eric's breaking the law, he deserves to get caught. And if he's not? Then he passes the inspection and we try something else. But David, guys like Eric always cut corners. Always think they're too smart to get caught. I thought about it. It was sneaky, underhanded, and would probably cause Rachel significant embarrassment. Make the call, I said. Charlene dialed her cousin while Nick and I ordered another round. Diane? It's Charlene. I need a favor. No, not that kind of favor. There's a spa in Millbrook that might be operating outside its license. Serenity Springs? Yeah, that's the one. Tomorrow? That would be perfect. She hung up and smiled. Inspection scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Anonymous tip about unlicensed massage therapy. What happens if they find violations? Depends on how serious they are. Could be anything from a fine to a temporary shutdown. The thought of Rachel's precious spa being shut down filled me with a satisfaction I probably shouldn't have enjoyed as much as I did. There's one more thing, Nick said. If we're really going to do this, we need to be smart about it. No direct contact, no threats, nothing that could come back on us legally. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we let Eric destroy himself. Guys like him always do, eventually. We just help the process along. The health department inspection hit Serenity Springs like a tornado on a Tuesday afternoon. I wasn't there to see it, but Charlene's network of gossips provided a detailed play-by-play. Eric failed on multiple counts: unlicensed massage therapy, improper sanitation protocols, and, most damaging, operating a business out of a space not properly zoned for the services he was providing. The private room in the back, it turned out, wasn't up to code for any kind of therapeutic treatment. The spa was shut down pending a full investigation. Rachel called me that night, hysterical. They closed Eric's spa, some anonymous tip about violations. David, this is destroying my life. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, not sorry at all. You don't understand. Eric thinks someone's targeting him specifically. He thinks it might be connected to jealous husbands or something. Imagine that. This isn't funny. I need this place, David. It's my sanctuary, my peace. Without it, I don't know what I'll do. Maybe try yoga at the community center. I hear it's very affordable. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. You did this, she said finally. I did what? You called in that tip. You're trying to ruin my life because I wouldn't follow you to Albany like some obedient little wife. Rachel, I'm 3 hours away, starting a new job, trying to build a new life. I don't have time to sabotage your spa visits. Then how did you know about Eric? How did you know to ask about my connections yesterday? I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, I told her the truth. Because you're not as discreet as you think you are. Heart emojis, Rachel. Really? Another long silence. I want a divorce, she said. Good. So do I. I want the house, half your pension, and alimony. You can have the house. The rest we'll let lawyers figure out. You bastard, you absolute bastard. I hope you're happy. I'm getting there. She hung up. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. 12 years of marriage ended with a phone call about real estate and pension plans. My phone rang again. This time it was Nick. You see the news about the spa? Rachel called. She's not taking it well. There's more. Charlene's been making calls, spreading the word about Eric's special services. Apparently, several wives are now asking their husbands some very uncomfortable questions. Good. It gets better. Eric's been trying to call in favors, get the spa reopened quickly. Problem is, most of his connections are married men who suddenly don't want to be associated with him. I walked to my apartment window and looked out at the parking lot. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a failed husband in a hopeless marriage, packing boxes and running away from my problems. Now I was orchestrating the downfall of my wife's lover from 3 hours away. Nick? Yeah? What kind of man does this make me? The kind who doesn't let people walk all over him anymore. The kind who fights back. It feels wrong. David, your wife was cheating on you. This Eric guy was helping her do it, probably charging you for the privilege through your joint credit cards. They made their choices. He was right, but it didn't make the hollow feeling in my chest go away. There's something else, Nick continued. Charlene heard through the grapevine that Eric's looking for you. Wants to have a man-to-man conversation about the situation. Let him look. I'm not hiding. David. What? Be careful. Guys like Eric don't like being cornered. They do stupid things. I thought about that after I hung up. Eric was losing his business, his reputation, probably several lucrative relationships with married clients. He was desperate, and desperate people were unpredictable. But I wasn't the same man who'd packed boxes and slunk away from his problems 3 weeks ago. I'd found something in Albany, confidence, purpose, allies who had my back. If Eric wanted a confrontation, he could have one. I just hoped I was ready for it. The confrontation came sooner than expected. I was leaving work Thursday evening when I spotted the white BMW in the parking lot. Eric was leaning against it, arms crossed, trying to look intimidating. He failed. Up close, without the spa's flattering lighting and new age music, Eric looked older, softer. His tan was definitely fake, and his expensive clothes couldn't hide the fact that he was going to fat around the middle. David, right? We need to talk. I don't think we do. I kept walking toward my car, but he moved to block my path. You cost me my business. I didn't do anything to your business. The health department did. Don't play stupid. You called in that tip. Prove it. His face flushed red. You think you're clever? You think you've won something? I think I need to get home. Excuse me. I tried to step around him, but he grabbed my arm. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. Something in my expression made him let go. Rachel told me about you, he said, falling back on verbal intimidation. Said you were a loser, a nobody. Said you couldn't satisfy her in any way that mattered. The words hit their target. For a moment, I was back in that sterile kitchen, listening to Rachel dismiss 12 years of marriage like it was a minor inconvenience. Then I remembered my paycheck, my new job, my new life. Rachel says a lot of things, I said. Most of them are lies. She said you'd be jealous. Said you couldn't handle the fact that a real man was giving her what she needed. A real man? I looked him up and down. You're a middle-aged con artist who preys on unhappy housewives. If that's what Rachel needs, she's welcome to it. You son of a... Careful. Nick's voice cut through the parking lot. He was walking toward us, still in his work clothes, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd handled much more dangerous situations than this. Eric looked between us, calculating odds. This isn't over, he said finally. Yeah, it is. I unlocked my car. Your business is closed, your reputation is shot, and my wife is about to be my ex-wife. Seems pretty over to me. He stood there fuming while I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Nick approach him, say something that made Eric's shoulders slump, then walk away. I called Nick when I got home. What did you say to him? I suggested he might want to leave town for a while, let things cool down. And I mentioned that several husbands around here are looking for someone to blame for their marital problems. Someone like him. Is that true? It is now. Charlene's been very busy spreading the word about Eric's business practices. I should have felt guilty about destroying a man's life, even a man like Eric. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. The power to fight back. The power to win. The power to make people who had hurt me face consequences for their actions. It was intoxicating. Eric left town the following weekend. Just packed up his BMW and disappeared, leaving behind a closed spa, angry creditors, and a trail of disillusioned clients who were now asking uncomfortable questions about their wellness treatments. Rachel called me Sunday night, drunk and furious. He's gone, she slurred. Just left, didn't even say goodbye. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You planned this. You destroyed everything good in my life. Rachel, you destroyed your own life. I just stopped enabling it. Enabling what? My happiness? My chance to feel alive again? Your affair, your lies, your complete disrespect for our marriage. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more vulnerable than I'd heard it in years. I loved him, David. I really loved him. No, you didn't. You loved the way he made you feel. There's a difference. How would you know? When was the last time you made me feel anything? The question hung between us like a challenge. When was the last time? I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped trying to make each other happy and started focusing on avoiding making each other miserable. Maybe that's why this happened, I said. Maybe we both stopped trying. Don't you dare blame this on me. Don't you dare make this my fault. I'm not. I'm saying we both let this marriage die. You just found someone else before I did. Before you did? David, are you seeing someone? I wasn't, but the possibility seemed to terrify her in a way that my leaving hadn't. Would it matter if I was? Of course it would matter. You're still my husband. Not for much longer. She started crying then, deep, ugly sobs that made me remember why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. Rachel had always been beautiful when she cried, vulnerable in a way that made men want to protect her. I made a mistake, she whispered. I know I did. But we can fix this, David. We can start over. No, we can't. Why not? Because of your pride? Because I hurt your feelings? Because you don't love me, Rachel. You haven't loved me in years. You love the idea of not being alone, of having someone to fall back on when your other options don't work out. That's not true. Isn't it? When Eric was around, you couldn't wait to get rid of me. Now that he's gone, suddenly you want to work things out. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, I said. You can keep the house, but I want this over. David, please. I hung up. The next morning, I called a lawyer in Albany and started the process of legally ending my marriage. It felt like signing my own final verdict and birth certificate at the same time. That afternoon, Charlene called me at work. "You need to see this," she said. "Can you get away for lunch?" I met her at Murphy's, where she had a tablet loaded with social media screenshots. "Eric's ex-clients are talking," she said, showing me Facebook posts and Instagram stories. "Turns out, you and Rachel weren't the only couple he targeted." I scrolled through the posts, women talking about expensive treatments that seemed designed to create dependency, marriages that had fallen apart after wives became obsessed with their wellness routines, men who had discovered credit card charges for services they'd never heard of. "There's more," Charlene said. "Some of these women are talking about organizing, maybe filing complaints with the state licensing board. Good for them. David, they want to talk to you. You're the only husband who actually fought back, who exposed him. I don't want to be the poster boy for betrayed husbands. You don't have to be, but your story could help other people understand what happened to them." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to put this whole mess behind me, move on with my life, pretend none of it had ever happened. But another part of me remembered how powerless I'd felt, how isolated, how convinced I was that Rachel's unhappiness was somehow my fault. "Set up a meeting," I said, "but somewhere private. I don't want this turning into a circus." The meeting was that Saturday at a community center in a town halfway between Albany and Millbrook. 12 people showed up, 8 women, 4 men, all of them casualties of Eric's wellness empire. Their stories were remarkably similar. Spouses who had become increasingly distant and critical, mysterious charges on credit cards, secretive behavior around phones and computers, relationships that had deteriorated as partners became more involved with Eric's programs. "He had a system," said a woman named Jennifer, whose husband had left her after she'd spent their savings on Eric's retreats. "He'd identify problems in your life, then position himself as the solution." "Not just himself," added Mark, whose wife had moved out after becoming convinced that their marriage was blocking her spiritual growth. "His whole program, the spa, the treatments, the private sessions, it was like a cult." "How did you figure it out?" asked Susan, a teacher whose marriage had imploded after she'd started seeing Eric for relationship counseling. I told them about the heart emoji, the credit card statements, the way Rachel had prioritized her spa visits over our marriage. I told them about the investigation, about Eric's hasty departure, about the divorce papers I'd filed. "Do you regret it?" Jennifer asked. "Exposing him, I mean. It must have been hard, knowing it would end your marriage." "My marriage ended the day Rachel chose Eric over me," I said. "I just made it official." "But do you regret the way you handled it? The investigation, the public exposure?" I thought about Eric, probably starting over in some other town, looking for new victims. I thought about Rachel, alone in our house, finally understanding the consequences of her choices. I thought about these people finally getting answers about what had happened to their relationships. "No," I said, "I don't regret it at all." After the meeting, I drove back to Albany feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I'd done something genuinely good. My phone rang as I was pulling into my apartment complex. Unknown number. "Hello? You think you've won." Eric's voice was tight with anger. "You think you've destroyed me? I think you destroyed yourself. I just helped people see it. I know about your little support group, very touching, all those broken marriages. What do you want, Eric? I want you to know that this isn't over. I'm going to rebuild, and when I do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "What kind of man is that?" "The kind who destroys other people's happiness because he can't stand his own failures." I laughed, surprising both of us. "You know what the funny thing is, Eric? I'm not a failure anymore. I've got a good job, a new life, friends who actually respect me. You gave me the best gift you could have given me. You took Rachel off my hands. I hung up and blocked the number. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Rachel. Divorce papers signed. House is mine, you can have everything else. Don't contact me again. I texted back, "Take care of yourself, Rachel." She didn't reply. That night, I went to Murphy's to celebrate. Nick and Charlene were there, along with Tommy and a few other regulars who had become something like friends. "So it's official?" Charlene asked. "It's official. I'm a free man." "How does it feel?" I thought about it. How did it feel to be divorced at 38? How did it feel to have orchestrated the downfall of my ex-wife's lover? How did it feel to have helped a dozen other people understand what had happened to their marriages? "It feels like justice," I said finally. Nick raised his glass. "To justice." "To justice," the table echoed. We drank, and for the first time in years, I felt truly happy. 6 months later, Eric surfaced in a town outside Buffalo, running a similar operation under a different name. But this time, he didn't last long. Word of his methods had spread through social media, and the women he targeted were prepared for his tactics. He moved on again and again, each time finding it harder to establish himself as the communities he entered became more aware of his patterns. Rachel sold our house and moved to Florida, where she got a job at a real estate office and, according to mutual friends, seemed to be building a more honest life. I stayed in Albany, got promoted again, and eventually started dating a woman named Sarah, who worked in the company's accounting department. She was nothing like Rachel, practical, funny, completely uninterested in wellness trends or spiritual gurus. We took things slowly, both of us carrying scars from previous relationships. But she made me laugh, and I made her feel safe, and that seemed like a good foundation for whatever came next. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd handled things differently. If I'd tried harder to save my marriage, if I'd confronted Rachel directly instead of orchestrating Eric's downfall, if I'd been the bigger person and walked away without fighting back. But then I'd remember the meeting at the community center, the gratitude in those people's voices when they finally understood what had happened to them. I'd remember the reports of Eric's continued failures, the marriages he couldn't destroy because people were prepared for his tactics. I'd remember that sometimes fighting back isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's about justice. And sometimes justice and revenge are the same thing.